This is Keep Up. I'm your host, Cynthia Dill. It's Thursday, October 16th, 2025. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio, and joining me on today's show, I'm delighted to have Ed MacColl. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thank you, Cynthia. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm especially happy because on my behalf and on other citizens' behalf, you fought the man and won last night a major victory for anyone who's not supportive of closing Sawyer Road. So I thought we could just begin by, saying congratulations and thank you, but also if you could summarize the battle, like what was that, set the stage for last night's meeting of the town council,
So,
Sawyer Road.
somehow a proposal to close Sawyer Road and um, obliterate it uh, got going years ago without really any public input. I first heard about it probably in April of 2024 and immediately was just distressed. I live right around the corner from it. It's a fantastic road. It floods occasionally, which makes it more ecologically friendly than any other marsh crossing in southern Maine. The flooding helps the marsh, but it's people use it as an excuse to take it out. And I started looking into why are we doing this? How can this be being done without having had a public hearing? Must be a statute that controls this. There was a statute, found the statute. I've written probably 6 or 7 5-page single-spaced letters to the town council saying, you have to follow this statute, you have to follow this statute. Eventually, sometime this summer, they agreed they did have to follow the statute. They had to have a public process. And I think we demonstrated, at least to 5 of the 7 councilors, that every aspect of the proposal to take out the road is flawed. Every argument to take out the road is flawed. It's an environmentally friendly road. Taking it out would generate far more air pollution than marsh enhancement could possibly generate. We can enhance the marsh with the road in place. In fact, that's the plan, is to use the road to help the marsh enhancement. It will cost much more to take it out than it costs to
Well,
maintain.
yeah, I think that's where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people. And this is the marsh that kind of is in between the towns of Cape Elizabeth and Scarborough, Maine. It's beautiful. The road, as you said, is designed to not only be beautiful but to accommodate the environment. But what really kind of, I think, got in a lot of people's craw, so to speak, is the fact that we were going to pay to take. So this is a beautiful road that we own as citizens, and we were being asked to pay for its removal and for so many unknown costs. I mean, I think that was the real shocker. What do you think was the tipping point of awareness in the public's mind during
So,
this ongoing campaign that you were running?
well, I was running a campaign. I was on the sidelines yelling, but
No, I must say, Ed, it was an excellent advocacy job. I was just reviewing some of the questions that you sent to the various municipalities, and they were just very spot on, obviously very well researched. I mean, you really made the case in a very compelling way that this was the stupidest thing we could possibly do. And that's not, with a lot of stupid things happening, that was pretty impressive.
there's no good argument to remove the road. The the best argument to remove the road is that some people feel an emotional need to stand up and say, I'm for addressing global warming and I'm for marshes, and roads and marshes are bad and we should remove one road to prove that we care. That's the best argument you could make to remove this road. There's no logic based argument that makes sense to remove this road. We had
Somehow, Ed, though, somehow it came down to just from like the where we're at in society. I think for a lot of people's minds, at first, it was sold as unless you're a climate denier, you support removing this road. There was a lot of political, I think, ramifications associated with this project. That somehow, if you were a Democrat, you had to be supportive of removing the road because it was in furtherance of saving the planet. But I think you dispelled that, right? I mean.
So I think that's an excellent point, Cynthia. And many Democrats have really gone, or our environmental policy has really gone awry, because our environmental policy has been built not just on the notion we need to protect the environment, but that we should do it by putting up absurd numbers of roadblocks to projects that make sense, even projects that will help the environment. And then there's no process when somebody comes along with a proposal to take out a road that sounds like it's environmentally friendly. But if you scratch a little bit, you'll find out that when the DEP approved this grant, they absolutely did not take into account, and I got an email from the DEP today confirming this, the air pollution that would be generated by forcing people to drive what the town estimates would be 20,000 hours annually,
Up
which,
and down Wells Road.
pardon me?
Up and down Wells Road. I mean,
Yeah,
crazy.
around the
Uh,
mark. So it's,
I thought your question too about like the fact that we are committing to removing this road, the contents of which we don't even know, right? I mean, they didn't even know what it was we were going to be removing or what the cost of the removal was, did they?
they had, somebody came up with a rough ballpark estimate and it's included in the grant. But there is scheduled, and maybe Scarborough, which may still go forward with closing the road, may do that test next month. We're scheduled to take some core samples to try to find out what's in the road. Right now, we don't know. That road is on maps that are 154 years old. It's older than that. It was substantially improved in 1964 when it was not uncommon to use some hazardous materials in roads through marshes. We don't know whether any were used. This is an example of people making a decision based on the view I've got to prove that I'm a liberal who believes in human caused climate change, which by the way I am and I do, but not apply thought before we make a decision based on that prejudice.
Yeah, sort of knee-jerk reaction. So last night, the town council took a vote, 5-2, opposed to closing Sawyer Road. But what does the vote mean? Like, what
So
impact does that vote have?
So the statutory process that the town had to go through, but waited years to start because they didn't get good legal advice at the outset and they didn't get good staff advice at the outset. The process is they have to draft and agree on an order of discontinuance. Then they have to file it with the town clerk so anybody can go read it. Then they have to have a public hearing, which wasn't the public hearing last night. Then they would have a vote on whether to finally approve that order of discontinuance. So last night was just the first stage of, are we as a council going to recommend to the public that they consider and that will then finally vote on this order? And when they considered all the evidence, the case against closure was so clear, they stopped the process at what was really the first stage, even though it was 3 years into the process.
So, there's a lot of talk, up since we were talking the political spectrum. There's so much talk about the Trump administration being a threat to democracy, that somehow we're under, siege, that our democratic norms are not being adhered to. But when I look at this project, and like you said, how it was a foregone conclusion 3 years in, it seems to have been run sort of by the bureaucracy. So who do you think is a bigger threat to democracy? This is a hard question, Ed, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Donald Trump or, the deep state and King Elizabeth? That's
Well, I don't always disagree with the notion that at all levels of government, uh, unelected officials have an awful lot of power, and that should be checked at all levels of government. I think this is right now a pretty good example of that happening. Exactly why staff became so emotionally invested in this project, I don't know. But,
Or
but
I think the question too is why the staff has so much power. The ability to move these things through. I saw the same thing when we were doing this so-called affordable housing project in the town center. By the time I got wind of it, and I live across the street, it had been basically a foregone conclusion, and it took a citizen referendum to, put the brakes on, which just seemed to me outrageous. But so tell me now a little bit about the differences between, because there's two towns involved. There's the federal government, but then it's the town of Scarborough and the town of Cape Elizabeth. What do you see as the difference in the two municipalities, and what has to happen in Scarborough as far as you know?
so in Scarborough, they voted to uh, recommend an order of closing the road. And now they'll have a public hearing in Scarborough, and then they'll have a vote whether to approve that. I heard that there was a woman from Scarborough who made a good presentation saying that this process had not followed the law, like I'd been arguing in Cape. I've been in touch with her this morning. Hopefully, we can get some more folks in Scarborough to understand that it's a mistake. I think the work that a few of us did in Cape to educate the council that this was not sustainable scientifically, economically, from a safety standpoint in terms of the other roads that can't handle the traffic. That work just hasn't been done yet in Scarborough. I've tended to copy the town manager in Scarborough on my submissions to the Cape Council, but not the town council. I don't know any councilors in Scarborough, and I'm just a lawyer from Cape Elizabeth. They don't care what. And I
But the thing is, I think you have, in addition to all of that evidence that we've been talking about, you also have just a very, I think there's something about the story behind this that's, I don't know if nostalgic is the right word, but the idea that way back in the 1930s or so, they designed this road and then improved it, as you said, in the 60s so magnificently. You just like think like, oh, good, there were some good things that the government did in conjunction with, the needs of the citizens, as well as taking into account Mother Nature. The story is a good one. It's a darn good road.
Yeah, it's a beautiful road. It's a well-designed road. It was improved in 1963 and 64 by the DOT. It works very well. It's a style of design that the United States government recommends around the world because it's low cost and environmentally friendly. So if you're trying to build roads in places like Africa where they have way too few roads and they have a problem, we've got to cross a wetland, we've got to cross some water. This is the design to use. We happen to have it here in a road that was built something more than 150 years ago. Finn Sprague is convinced it's over 300 years. I haven't found documentation for that, but it's a couple 100-year-old road, and it was designed with a common sense theme that's probably allowed flooding from day one. And it was improved in 64 so that the flooding wouldn't happen at the culvert, except in big storms, but that flooding could happen at other places to accommodate the tide, which is exactly a design that later became recognized worldwide as an environmentally friendly, low-cost way to build a good road like this one.
So Ed, what I guess the big question maybe on people's minds is why the issue around taking the road down is about allowing the marsh to flood. Why is it important that the flooding can get through to the other side of the road into the further depths of the marsh?
Well, the flooding does get through to the other side of the road. Even just by the culvert provides enough water on a big tide to flood the marsh on both sides. Eleanor Redmond spoke last night. They live in that last house. If you cross the road and look to the west, on the north side, it's beautiful sloping lawn. They have a beautiful home
Where
in
the
there.
little horse is?
Pardon me? No,
Did
no.
have-
Scarborough. The horses are in Scarborough. So the Redmonds are in Cape.
Oh,
Way
okay.
west. You have to look left as you're crossing the road from Scarborough into Cape Elizabeth. They love the marsh. They own over 40 acres, including west of the road. The town owners own to the river. East of the road, the town owns the marsh. They
Oh,
love the. It floods at their property. There's a rock dam in the river that I've paddled over many times. That's been there for hundreds of years. It floods on a high tide. The marsh floods all the way in almost over to Pleasant Hill Road in Scarborough on a big tide. So it does flood. It floods well. It floods as it should. There are other marshes in southern Maine that don't. This isn't one of them. Uh, the case, and often Jake Amon is the environmental consultant. When he appeared before the council and answered questions, he generally described problems with marshes in general, and then would clarify that he's really talking about other marshes, including the biggest one in Scarborough that goes all the way up past Route 1. And there was very little evidence of any of those problems in this marsh. there are some ponds and one of them is expanding, and the solution to that is to improve its drainage. It has nothing to do with removing the road, and the plan is to improve its drainage.
So um, now put your lawyer hat on for a minute. I think, as far as I understand, some commitments have been made by the town, and as we've just been discussing, and they were a mistake. And thankfully, there's now some light on the process, and we had the vote last night. But we signed some things. Could you describe what the citizens are on the hook for, as far as you understand it?
So I've
And
written a detailed letter addressing that liability issue and what I think that the citizens of Cape Elizabeth could be on the hook for if we don't go forward with road removal, as at this point we're not going to, and that is nothing. I do not believe there's any case for liability.
Ed, did the town council actually sign a memorandum of agreement? I think did the councilors themselves, or did they give the town manager authority to sign a contract, like a memorandum of understanding?
The town manager signed both the memorandum of understanding with Scarborough and the grant from the MNRCP, which is essentially the DEP. It's jointly administered by the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. And we did receive $90,000 under this grant. And people have said, well, we have to pay that back. And we should absolutely not have to pay any of it back. It would be an equitable claim. And the money was only spent on the process of getting ready to improve federally owned marshland in a different town, namely Scarborough. We can go forward with that improvement, and assuming that the people who designed it knew what they were doing, and they're smarter at this than I am, we should go forward with that part of the project without taking out the road. So the money will be used, and so far has been used, exactly for its purpose. Now, if the DEP wants to say, well, we have a heart set on taking out a road, whether it's good or bad, that's an issue, but it'll be on them. I don't think, I've asked the town on this over the last few weeks. I've said, if you're worried about that, call the DEP and ask them what happens if the people of the town want to save that road. Can we just use the money you've already given us and continue to use it to enhance the marsh in accordance with this program? It doesn't make a lot of sense that we've managed to put ourselves in the middle of taking state money and spending it to enhance federally. But here we are. We're willing to honor our commitment. We will do that. And what's your response to that? And in fact, although the town reached out on some other issues where it thought it could get a resolution it would like, they didn't call the DEP. And I know they didn't, because the DEP told me the town has not called, because they didn't want to hear there was a constructive solution. I think town staff wanted to tell the town council, well, you might get sued and have to spend money, so you should just go along with this program that we've put in place without careful thought. That's what I.
Well, Ed MacColl, I want to thank you again for your excellent advocacy and public awareness. You did. Thank you, and I hope you continue your efforts. Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, thank you very much for having me, Cynthia. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Thank you.